DNI Tulsi Gabbard targets Russia hoaxers that are still serving in the government. Blaze News, the mandate starts right now. Welcome in, everyone. I'm Jill Savage, joined as always by Editor-in-Chief Matthew Peterson.
Oh, yeah. Here, President accounted for. Hump Day, Wednesday. We're ready to roll. We have a lot to talk about.
We are ready to roll. Chris Bedford, our DC politics editor. Are you ready to roll?
Slightly out of breath, winded from my trucking across Washington, D.C., but I'm ready to roll, yeah.
I have to just mention, like, you used to be in the kitchen every single day. You have gotten, like, the J.D. Vance meme of, like, downstairs. We're getting downstairs basement every day.
I've been kicked to the basement. There are crying babies in the kitchen right now, and cats fighting, and it's a busy scene up there.
Well, there's a busy scene going on in the rest of Washington, D.C. All the intelligence community they've been making headlines left and right. And we have DNI Tulsi Gabbard, who has just pulled the plug on the security clearances for 37 current and former intel officials. And there are a lot of the people that have been tied to this Russiagate saga. She's accusing them of politicizing intel and betraying trust of the American people. And she even went out and posted their names online. And so Trump gave the go-ahead. Gabbard pulled the trigger. Now we're looking at some serious shakeups right now with the intelligence community.
Do we have deep state actors that are trying to influence our presidential elections? Is that what we're concluding here?
Yes, we have people within the intelligence community. Again, when you look at this example of who President Obama charged with this task, John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey at the highest levels, but also those who worked as careerists within the intelligence community who did not object to their manipulation and manufacturing of intelligence.
So, Matt, one of the things that we ask all the time here on this show is, where is the accountability? Where is the action? And once again, it's Tulsi Gabbard that's bringing it to the American people.
Yeah. See, what's exciting about this is the kind of thing you want to see as the next step. The first thing you do is you go after the big names, right? The big documents about Russiagate and the Comeys and the Clappers, and everyone knows them, right? But for every one of those people, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of other people underneath them whose names you don't know, but who are very important because they're the people who go out and implement, supposedly, the will of every administration. And these are the people who live, eat, and breathe Washington, D.C. So to actually see people like that be named and their security clearance be revoked, which means even more maybe than it sounds at first glance, is an enormous step forward.
Chris, Tulsi Gabbard says that being entrusted with a security clearance is a privilege and not a right. So how big of a deal is this?
Right. It's also a very lucrative privilege. It's one that keeps you currently employed in your position, gets you access to things that you can use for good or for evil. And it is extremely valuable in the private sector, where it usually follows people. Tulsi Gabbard has proven herself to be one of the absolute standout members of this administration. Someone who a lot of Republican senators really wanted to reject, but who's come in here and has been bringing receipts and has been holding people accountable. Now, she's only got the president, at her suggestion, only has certain powers to actually hold people accountable, fire them, take away their security clearance, which many people keep into their retirement, past their retirement. The rest of it's going to come down to the Department of Justice. But she's doing an excellent job. This is something that we want to see. Matt's completely right. There are major implications for this. It's going to impact these folks. Naming them is excellent. Put them on the history books as people who've actually done this, as opposed to being able to hide in the shadows and behind keyboards and screens. Now the next step is going to be with Cam Bondi, and she's yet to prove herself.
Chris, I think this is a really important point that if you're sitting there at home, you may not fully comprehend, because when you hear security clearance, you kind of think, well, okay, you're given clearance by the government to see certain things, and that's great. And most people would think, after you leave your job, that's gone, and may not have a full understanding of the implications of that status that gives you and the sorts of things you were just talking about. And then there's other people, right, like all of us, realize everything's classified and, sort of ridiculous in the government. And so people might downplay this. But the security clearance, according to what you just said, it confers a certain status, right, in Washington. And explain more about how it means it's lucrative.
Well, it's something that you'll list on your resume, that you're able to, you won't always have access, of course, to the same systems that you were able to have access to, but you're legally allowed to handle and see different materials because you're someone who has been judged by the country to be trustworthy, someone who's gone through the rigmarole, someone whose has friends and family may have been interviewed, whose finances may have been looked at. It depends on how high the security clearance goes. Maybe someone who's even been subjected to polygraphs and other different ways of being able to detect whether or not someone is stressed out when they're telling a lie, or whether they can't tell a lie, or whether they're actually being honest. Sometimes you can gain those. It can be difficult. Those security clearances, if you're working in outside firms for liaison with as a liaison with the government, can allow you to actually work with materials which you would not otherwise be able to work with. So there's tons of private companies out there that handle confidential and classified information as part of their services they provide to the United States federal government, especially in the Department of Defense. Whether you're building aircraft, working in other military technology, different spy technology, different, sometimes even just basic things like telecommunications technology and cell phones. And those people, once they're in the private sector, those are the ones who make some of the zip codes around Washington, D.C., the most expensive and the wealthiest zip codes in the country, which means basically on the planet, is because that defense contractors, those people who are in that industry, those people who provide those services and are only able to provide those services in liaison with the government if they're people who've received that security clearance check, who've been able to pass that mark as someone who is trustworthy, who has gone through those background checks. You take that away, you take that path to a lot of money away from people, even if they say, you know what, I'm done with Trump, I'm leaving, I hate this government, or I'm done with this grind, I'm done with what I've been doing in the bureaucracy, it's time for me to make some money, or whatever reason you have for actually wanting to go into that, it closes those doors. There's a lot of things you still can do, but since your expertise and your contacts have been built around an industry where everything, to your point, Matt, is classified, it kind of nukes your experience. What's your resume now? If you can't look at things or talk to the same people in the same way or deal with these subject matters, even from the outside anymore, with the skill base you've had in the years you put in.
So the last few weeks, Tulsi Gabbard has been saying that the intel community has been weaponized. And she went out and, like we said, she named names. So let's get into some of the 37 that have been just revoked their security clearance. So let's start with Vinh Nguyen, who is currently the NSA's chief AI officer. Oh, I'm sorry. You just want access to absolutely everything. Just go ahead and connect right into the government's AI system. He was the top aide to James Clapper, who was Obama's DNI. He directed the cyber strategy during the 2016 election interference and pressured his cyber deputy into agreeing with the conclusion that Putin ordered the hack to help Trump win the 2016 presidential election. That's one of the 37. Let's move on to Mar Bitar, who says he is Biden's senior director for intelligence programs on the White House NSC staff. He's Adam Shifty Schiff's top legal advisor and played a key role in the first impeachment of President Trump. You get down to the bottom and you see the United Nations Relief Works Agency. That group has helped provide material support for terrorists. There are 9 UNRWA employees that took part in the terrorist activities on October 7th in Israel. This group has approximately 13,000 employees in Gaza, 440 active members in the Hamas military operations. Like, guys, that doesn't sound too good to me when we're like, oh, we could just go through and list off like all these terrorist organizations.
See, I mean, this is the kind of thing that this show exists to present. I mean, here are people you'd never heard of, but you're in charge of AI for the NSA, and you were pressuring a whistleblower and telling them you better get with the program and go along with what we're going to pretend, about Trump and Putin. I mean, the fact that these people are still there, this is exactly the kind of thing the American people are sick and tired of. And this is just a great little first stab in the right direction, because as Chris says, and this means something, right, to take away a security clearance. Yeah, they're not being prosecuted, but that is a sign of status and a path to cash, as Chris is saying. So this is the kind kind of thing that, you do more of this, people will pay attention.
So how telling is it, Chris, that these people keep kind of showing up in all these anti-Trump operations over and over and over again? The Democrats are trying to tell us, oh, no, these are just partisan Intel employees. But I do remember something about a Hunter Biden laptop situation where the Intel community said, oh, no, nothing was made up there. It's just all Russian disinformation.
I mean, some of these folks in these positions may have been nonpartisan back in the day when both the parties were just on the same team with the intel agencies and with not disrupting anything about the international order, about not disrupting anything with the Pentagon. Then maybe they wouldn't have had a strong opinion on Romney versus Obama or Bush versus H.W. Bush versus Clinton. Maybe those type of people wouldn't care. But Donald Trump threatened to disrupt their systems. And because of that, they went strongly against the person. They really wanted to take him down. And now but a lot of these things also, like UNWR, or UN Relief World Organization, whichever one it's called, that shows that ideology is actually everywhere, even in these top posts. One, these are lucrative positions. Two, that they attract ideological people. It's not a very good sign. And, watching you go through just a few of those names right there and watching what Tulsi Gabbard's doing, and just there's the AI guy who was pressured by Clapper to pressure his people to change this aspect of the report. Makes me so wish we had actually had a government in Barack Obama that was willing to do this in the reports that came out in the lead up to the Iraq war, to go back and say, okay, we're going to dig into this intelligence. Mm-hmm. We're going to know how this report was made. Why is the conclusion so different from everything else in the report? Where was the pressure and who's responsible? This is a kind of a system that has gone on for a very long time in Washington, D.C., and this is the first time in a long time that it's really being dismantled.
Well, we have two more to highlight. They're key players in the organization of the Russia hoax at the highest level. Stephanie O'Sullivan was the senior most intel official as a woman and the second highest ranking intel officer back in 2016. She's a former principal deputy director of the National Intelligence under Clapper and Obama and a trustee for InQtel, which is a CIA-backed venture fund that was established back in 1999. And Emily Horn, I've heard of Emily Horn's name before, just in stories that have come up. She's the director of strategic communication for the National Security Council under Barack Obama. And from 2017 to 2018, she was the head of global communications for Twitter. Wait a minute. Hold on. You're telling me social media companies and Intel were all getting together. And she was also the NSC senior director for press and spokesperson under Biden. And she protected government Russian disinformation guidelines. Matt, I've been reliably assured that social media companies, they did not take their cues from the government. They had completely separate standards, and they would never infringe on our rights just because the government said so.
Well, Jill, I'm very sorry that you've been misled by all the conspiracy theories in right-wing media. Terrible thing. I mean, again, this is just music to my ears. This is exactly the kind of thing. These are the kinds of players that they move in and out of government and they play the political game. And this is the only way to stop this is by naming them and by starting to at least take their security clearance away, which again is a sign of disrespect. It's taking status away. We need a whole lot more to come. But the goal here, as Chris says, is this goes against both parties' actions in the past, by the way. You actually want people who are trying to act as honest brokers and do the job that intelligence is supposed to do, which is to provide information to political officials to make decisions for the country. And you cannot have the Republican form of government if you have people in the IC going in and out of communications companies and censoring people en masse. It's absolutely insane.
Chris, it's just like, oh, I'm just going to be over there on Capitol Hill and then I'm going to become a lobbyist. Like they're just kind of doing the same things all over, except this is just strictly with Intel.
Strictly with Intel. And some of them go to Capitol Hill from inside the executive to advise congressmen and senators and then develop those relationships, which are also lucrative and important. And then, there's war is big business. Spying is big business. The confidentiality and secret clearances are big, big business in Washington, D.C. Information is money and information is power. And that's what they've been cut off from. And that's what's so important. I mean, I remember a few years ago talking to a U.S. senator who has since left, and he told me that the only reason he was still in Washington, despite all his disillusionment and how much he hated it, was he still got to sit in on the U.S. Senate intel briefings. And that just having access and just knowing about this information, which he did not use in his later career, just having access to it, knowing about it, was so fascinating to him that he was going to stay in for another couple of years. That's how addictive it can be.
I love that Tulsi is giving us the names. I love that we actually can go through and bring you, the viewers, exactly who has been stripped of their security clearance and what is actually going on behind the curtain in Washington, D.C. And remember that list. When people on TV, on legacy media are going to try and tell you, oh, these people, they're just pure. They want the best for the country. Okay, well, remember that list. Well, you think you know what you're buying at the grocery store until you find out that over 4 billion pounds of meat were imported to the United States just last year. And the kicker is that all of that can be labeled like it's a product of the United States. That's when you have to go, wait a minute, what are we actually eating? And what kind of games are they playing with all of the labels on the meat? That's when you have to go find goodranchers.com. Everything changes because you know that their meat is 100% American. It's born, raised, and harvested on local farms, and it's delivered right to your door. They have great quality. I'm a subscriber myself, and it's worth every penny. You can get $40 off every box, free shipping, and a free gift in every order. What's better than free meat? You can choose between bacon, seed oil-free chicken nuggets, and Wagyu burgers, and you can swap the gift back for each month and try something new. So if you're worried about signing up for a subscription, you shouldn't be, because you can pause it, delay it, or cancel it at any time. There's no stress, no lock-in. It's all very flexible. And thousands of people have made the switch already. The reviews are amazing. So head over to goodranchers.com to see what everyone's talking about. Use the code Jill. You'll get $40 off, plus free meat for life with your subscription. It's goodranchers.com. Welcome to the table. We love that Tulsi Gabbard is bringing accountability and justice. And we love that Ed Martin is doing the same thing, you guys, because Ed Martin's out there saying justice is coming. He's a DOJ special attorney. He's now leading the department's anti-weaponization group. So let's take a look at what he had to say on the Matt Gaetz show.
You've seen this, you know this, you've been aware of it, but we've never seen what happened in the Biden administration, the use of government against the American people. We've never seen it in our history. And so am I confident we're going to get to the bottom of it? Yes, because I got to get up in the morning early and work hard all day. But it is a fight. And it is a fight because people have deleted, they've disappeared, they've moved on. They've tried to say, don't talk about it, get on with it. President Trump has said, we're going to get to the bottom of it.
So Chris is saying, you know, hey, we're waiting for Pam Bondi over at the DOJ. Matt, when we look at Ed Martin, he's a guy that gets stuff done.
Yeah, he has never struck anyone as a guy who is shrinking violet, and he knows why he's there. The committee is called weaponization. It's against the weaponization in government, but Ed Martin is a weapon. And, for him to be happy, he's going to have to be, out there taking shots and doing stuff. So that's a powerful engine within the Bondi DOJ.
Chris, you liked it. I could tell. I could tell your reaction. You like what Matt was saying.
Oh, I loved it. He is absolutely a weapon. And I was also loving Matt Gaetz' set. It looks like he's broadcasting from Quagmire's living room. I guess it's, it fits. It's an interesting look, though. I watched that interview and absolutely loved it. I mean, geez, it seems like, I tell you what, if after all of this lead up, not from outside in the campaign trail, but from inside the government, after all this lead up, this ends up, we don't end up seeing perp walks. We don't end up seeing prosecutions. Oh boy, I will actually join you two in saying this is a major problem because they're getting me way too excited.
Well, it's not only just the DOJ stuff that he's doing, right? He's going after the weaponization with the J6 stuff, but he's also going after one of our favorites in Letitia James, right? If you're doing that, We are going to highlight it on the show because he opened an investigation on the New York AG James, and he sent her a letter calling for her resignation. And then he shows up outside her Brooklyn home in a trench coat, and he was posing for the New York Post. You guys, we saw this. We were talking about this in our meeting earlier today, Matt. We were like, this is a baller move right now from Ed Martin.
Yeah, I mean, it's like he's a one-man wrecking machine. He's just out there doing stuff and pushing the ball forward. And I appreciate the stunt as long as it's backed by action. And it is backed by action in his case. He is actually trying to do what the people want. He's actually trying to implement the mandate. So, I mean, I want to see his whole operation get full resources to move, full speed ahead and actually start holding people accountable, because it's getting uncomfortable for James. This is exactly what we want. We need to see a lot more of it. I want to see 1,000 of these sorts of cases, and going after the mortgage stuff and I mean, look, Al Capone, you get him on taxes. These people are playing shady, violating the law in various ways. Go after them however you want. Just make them uncomfortable, make them pay.
Is accountability actually going to catch up to Letitia James, Chris? Is it actually going to happen?
How delicious would that be? I mean, especially after she charged Trump with all those completely fake crimes, claimed that real estate and banks that claimed that weren't a victim were somehow victimized. It was completely psychotic, some of the things that she went after Trump for over the years. And now it turns out, holy smokes, the whole thing about this, the Biden stuff, all the files, all of the classifications, the people with the classified access, all the mortgage fraud, it makes me realize that they just never, ever, 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 ever thought that even if Republicans did win, anyone was going to do anything about it. They were so used to this system of being completely untouchable, of that's beyond the pale. Every time Republicans win, they usually talk about, we're going to unite the country. We need to bring back civic debate. We need to be able to talk to each other in a more civil manner, in a nice manner. You hear people talking about that all the time, except for Democrats. They actually get things done when they're in office. And this administration is breaking all of those molds. And it seems like a shock to people. I mean, mortgage crimes. These are crimes that these people have signed their names to. It's really incredible that they actually were so brazen that they were willing to do this. And this is the first time Republicans have been willing to look at it.
You want to talk about mortgage crime? Let's talk a little IRS and the Clintons for just the remaining few minutes that we have here, because two whistleblowers, John Moynihan and Larry Doyle, say that the Clinton Foundation was acting as an agent of a foreign government and violating its tax-exempt status. I would never believe that the Clintons would do such a thing. There is a trial set for December, but guys, the twist is the IRS tries to shut it down. So if this is any other nonprofit, Matt, we would never be talking about this, right? Things only happen in one direction, and it's always to benefit the Democrats.
I mean, the thing is, the momentum is moving in the right direction right now. And that's why talking about these things and drawing attention to them is so important, because the more you move that momentum and the more you scare people the other way, you can bring about justice. And then you can have the civic conversation that everyone wants. But you're not going to have any civic conversation if you have people who think, whether it comes to buying a home or whether it comes to setting up a nonprofit that's dealing with tens of millions of dollars and representing foreign interests and then accusing other people for it. I mean, if you think you're above the law, that's the way you're going to act. So until we actually see more of this, you can't have any civic discussion with any of these people. But with the Clinton Foundation in particular, I'm glad this throwback is coming back, because that was, I think, one of the first most flagrant examples of sort of the new mentality of the new money of new politics in the last few decades, where it just became acceptable for presidents to go and be dealing with tens and tens of millions of dollars, and that became the norm. So going back to that, I think, is important.
Chris, we'll give you the final word on this. And one section of the whistleblowers' complaint was just marked tax fraud at the top. Yes, we're getting somewhere.
And Bill Clinton developed that whole economy of presidents making huge amounts of money on the speaking circuit. Because H.W. Bush was too waspy and Reagan just retired, and previous presidents had never done it. That's amazing that there's actually a whistleblower from the Clinton Foundation. Although I got to say, I'm glad that somebody somewhere got some of their money's worth for all of the hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars they pumped into a Clinton foundation, and she never, ever even became the U.S. president. So somebody, I guess, somewhere got some, and I'm happy for that. They put a lot of money in there. They should get a little something, and, maybe we can get some people going to prison. Who knows?
I mean,
there's got to be some honesty in the graft somewhere,
The last thing that I would ever want to be is like a friend of the Clintons and going against them. Like, I don't know. You all know what I'm talking about.
Let's keep this whistleblower alive.
Exactly. Bedford, thanks so much. We'll see you again tomorrow.
See you then.
Don't go anywhere. When we come back, Mitch McConnell, he is out. We'll be talking to a guy who wants to take his place in the Senate in Kentucky right after this. All right, let's pause a second and talk to you directly. At Blaze Media, we know that's truth, freedom, faith in God and country. They're not just slogans. They're values that we live by every day. And we want to give you something to carry into your week that keeps you grounded in all of those values. So starting this Sunday, we're launching a brand new series called Sunday Revival. Every Sunday morning on Blaze TV, you'll get to hear inspiring messages from voices like Pastor Jack Graham of Prestonwood Baptist, Pastor Alan Jackson of World Outreach Church, and many, many more. So no matter how chaotic the world might feel, Sunday Revival is here to help you grow in your faith and stay rooted in God's word and start your week out with purpose. So join us this Sunday on Blaze TV, and let's begin the week together with inspiration, strength, and faith.
When McConnell voted against RFK Jr., he betrayed President Trump and the MAGA agenda. Andy Barr and Daniel Cameron are Mitch's boys. I'm Nate Morris, a pro-Trump conservative businessman and political outsider.
Well, there's a political shockwave out of Kentucky as Mitch McConnell allies have been caught plotting against U.S. Senate candidate Nate Morris. So here to discuss the panic that has been reverberating through the Kentucky establishment, the man at the center of it all, Nate Morris. Thanks so much for joining us again here, Nate. I feel like there has been so much that has been happening in this race. We had to have you back on. So tell us about the latest and what's going on.
Well, this is what happens when you take on the establishment and you're taking on someone who's been in the United States Senate for 40 years. I mean, can you believe that? Mitch McConnell was first elected in 1984 to the U.S. Senate. He's been in politics since the 1970s. And as you all know, I'm not a politician. I've never run for office before. I'm a businessman and entrepreneur. And I got in this race because I saw two McConnellites that would be no different than Mitch. And I said, enough is enough. We're going to have to change this up. And that's why I got in the race, is to shake it up and to provide something different that's aligned with President Trump and the MAGA movement, and not just a Mitch McConnell 2.0. And both of my opponents are Mitch puppets. I said this last time I was here. And since I talked to you last, Mitch McConnell has put together money in a super PAC to benefit both of my opponents to try to take me out. And that tells you everything you need to know, that we're on the right path, that we're well positioned to disassemble and destroy the establishment that Mitch McConnell's built over the last 40 years and give this seat back to the people where it belongs, not in the hands of political bosses, not in the hands of patronage and all the lobbyists that have benefited for years from Mitch McConnell. And that's why I know our candidacy is on the right track, and we're doing some great things in Kentucky because we're really shaking it up.
Well, Nate, I firmly believe that people in your state and throughout the country, they rejected Mitch McConnell in 2024 when they elected President Trump. Nonetheless, look, we have to be honest. There's this problem all over of incumbents or their cronies clinging to power by whatever means necessary. And in this case, one of your obstacles, as you mentioned, is money. I mean, Mitch has big, deep pockets of money. He always has. So those guys are going to get that stuff. Your opponents are going to get, cash. How would you describe their plan? What do they think they're going to do to hold on to power? What's their argument against you? Are they pretending to be pro-Trump, or what are they doing?
Well, they're going to say that they're MAGA candidates and they're with the president. But let's remember what Mitch McConnell has done to Donald Trump. This is a guy that stabbed the president in the back every chance he got. He blamed President Trump for January 6th. And Mitch McConnell likes to talk a big game when he goes around Kentucky, just about how powerful he's been over the years. And I would say to Mitch McConnell, why didn't you stand up to Joe Biden when he was trying to put President Trump in jail? I mean, Mitch McConnell did nothing when they were trying to put Donald Trump in jail. I couldn't believe it. And never stood up to him and supported things like amnesty. You all may recall one of the key features of our policy positions in this campaign is a full moratorium on any new immigration coming into our country until we deport every single one of the 20 million illegals that have invaded our country. Joe Biden just led in the United States. And Mitch McConnell sat back and let it happen. And so my opponents, they're going to align with Mitch. Their campaigns are run by Mitch people. All their money's coming from Mitch. And now they have this super PAC that's trying to take us on head to head because, look, I'm investing some of my own money, but we also have thousands of grassroots donors around the country to stop Mitch McConnell and his machine once and for all. And this race is going to be a referendum. Do you want more Mitch McConnell or do you want more Donald Trump? And I think Kentuckians are going to side with Donald Trump over and over again. And I think this race is going to be another example of that.
We know that Mitch McConnell has the deep pockets, as we were mentioning. We know he has a lot of power out there in Kentucky. But take me through this Lifetime Achievement Award that apparently didn't end up going to Mitch McConnell, which I have to assume is a pretty big surprise to him coming out of that.
Well, what was so crazy is we had our state Lincoln Day dinner. This is when all the county chairs and people from around the state, we get together as Republicans, we celebrate a lot of the victories. And we had gotten word about a month prior to the dinner that as a candidate for the U.S. Senate, we're not allowed to talk bad about anybody that's not running against us in our particular race. Now, the person who runs our party wrote that letter, so I wouldn't say anything bad about Mitch. And then we find out that they were actually planning to give him a Lifetime Achievement Award. Mitch McConnell has been going around the state collecting accolades on his way out the door. And, you know, it's really crazy because he's had his day in the sun. He's had more than enough of these awards through his long career. And I think people have had enough. And we called it out. We said he does not deserve the Lifetime Achievement Award for stabbing the president in the back, for getting us into Ukraine, for running up our deficit and our debt, which is causing crazy inflation. And Kentuckians can't even afford to go to the grocery store because of inflation, and continuing to sabotage President Trump every chance he got. So there's no reason why he should have gotten this award. And luckily, I think that people in the party, they got that message and they said, we can't give this to him. So I feel like we did the right thing by pushing that conversation and pushing the party to show them that we're headed for a new direction. The years of Mitch McConnell, we can put those to rest once and for all. We can kill McConnellism once and for all in Kentucky. And I think this is what this race is all about.
Yeah, Nate, so well said. I mean, I just can't say this enough. Everywhere in the audience and everyone I talk to throughout this country, I don't understand how the people in D.C. still don't get it sometimes. The voters in our audience doesn't care about the Republican, right, after your name. They care about whether or not you're part of MAGA Maha moving this thing forward. So if Republicanism means McConnellism, I mean, you're doing the entire party a service. That means it's going to die. And if that's what it means, like that was rejected at the ballot box. But I'm interested in what you're saying about, this going on in Kentucky. That's a great sign that the Republican Party there, went along the right way and didn't celebrate someone who represents everything to the detriment of Donald Trump and the agenda. But what's your agenda for Kentucky, the great state of Kentucky, moving forward? What do you think the big obstacles there? What do you want to accomplish for the state?
Well, first and foremost, we've got to have a clean break from McConnellism. And this campaign is about coming from the outside, being an entrepreneur and a business person. I created a very large business starting out with $10,000 on a credit card. I built it into a business that eventually became public on the New York Stock Exchange for $2 billion in the waste management sector. And you all know the waste management sector is not the nicest industry. This is the Tony Soprano industry. So I've had a lot of experience fighting big entrenched interests and being a disruptor. But we need people that come from the outside and can finally end the reign of career politicians. Career politicians have run our country off a cliff. We know this. And the longer someone stays in Washington, it seems to me the more corrupt and the more tarnished that they get and away from the people's interests. And I think we need fresh blood. One of the things I talk a lot about is I don't need the job. I don't need the money. And I've committed to 2 terms in the U.S. Senate. And while I'm in the Senate for those 2 terms, I want to make sure also we don't get us into these globalist wars that are never ending and that we can't win. We've seen that with Iraq. We've seen that with Ukraine. We've got to get a balanced budget. We got to talk about that and get that moving once again, because we can't leave the debt to our children that we have today. We're not going to have a country. And I think standing with the people of Kentucky, you know, I think most Kentuckians maybe don't know this, but Mitch voted for gun control. Mm-hmm. We don't call it Guntucky for nothing. You know, and the Second Amendment is celebrated here in the Bluegrass state, and voting against their interests over and over again. We can't have a senator who does that. And I don't owe anybody anything. I don't owe the swamp anything. I don't owe special interests anything. And I think that's why I'm going to be the right senator for the state to bring a new tradition of leadership that's completely independent of all the bad stuff that we've had to suffer through with these career politicians, and finally give it back to the people where it belongs.
You know, Nate, I listening to you cracks me up a little bit. I remember I did for a hot second, I did some consulting for in the waste management industry, and I can only affirm everything you're saying. This is a tough, rough and tumble world, and it also leads me to the last question here, which is, you know, you're in an industry where, and just as a businessman, a successful businessman, you know how these people are and how politics works, both from a local level, you know, on through state and federal. It's a dirty business. It's a dirty world, right? And the political world is, by all accounts, by everyone's understanding, corrupt right now. I'm just curious, what do you think causes that, right, among the sort of Washington, D.C. class? Like, psychologically, how do you evaluate these people who become part of the Borg? What do you think happens to them?
Well, I think you stay in a place like Washington for 40 years and you get patted on the back for all these things that you supposedly do up there, and you're dependent on special interest money and just to get reelected. And Mitch McConnell's been obsessed with 2 things his entire career. That's money and power. Mm-hmm. And he came in to the Senate as a very poor man. I think he was in debt or had no money. He's one of the richest senators in the U.S. Senate today. He's worth over $100 million. That's what gets reported. And that's crazy. This should not be a career for people. Our founding fathers did not intend for people who go into public service to make it their career to get elected to office. And I think that's fundamentally what's made America, it's set us back, it's made us corrupt in Washington, and we got to stop that. And we do that by imposing things like term limits on ourselves, bringing people from the outside, bringing in fresh blood. You know, I grew up raised by a single mom. We struggled. We were on food stamps. Most of my family members worked in an auto factory. So I've seen the perspective of the American worker, and we cannot forget the people that we go and represent, and people like my family who get hurt by things like NAFTA. You know, bad trade deals can cause generations of harm. And we've seen that with things like NAFTA and other policies. And this comes from being disconnected by thinking these things are a good idea. You know, people say your immigration stance is too tough. And I say, well, the people who are saying that are the same people that said NAFTA was a good idea. And we can't listen to the elites to get all of our information. I think that's what happens to guys like McConnell when they've been in Washington so long. They start thinking that the elites have all the answers, but we got to stay in touch with the people. And we do that by continuing to send outsiders and people that have term limited themselves and stayed connected to what's going on in the ground with everyday Kentuckians that are fighting every day just to make it.
Wow, Joe, this idea that Nate's talking about, that you should make money from providing goods and services to people and not being in office for a long time. That's a wild concept. A wild concept.
It is sad to see the number of people that go to Washington, D.C. poor and come out millionaires. Nate, if people want to learn more, where do they need to go?
Please come and see my website, natemorris.com. We are taking on the McConnell machine. We need your help and support. Chip into the campaign, be part of the movement, and please follow me on Twitter @NateMorris. Would love to engage in conversation.
Nate, always appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Thank you all so much.
Don't go anywhere. When we come back, it's almost NFL season. Colin Kaepernick not going to be getting his documentary. We'll break it all down for you after this. Well, we should cue the sad music. If you're one of the 5 people who wanted to watch Colin Kaepernick's life story, we're very sorry. The docuseries has been canned. Fun fact, back in my sports days, I covered a Colin Kaepernick collegiate football game. He played for Nevada. They played Oregon in Autzen Stadium. So I know, I actually got to talk to him and all that before. Look at where he is now, everyone. Sometimes they grow up and you just don't know what's going to happen. So I posted on X that ESPN is canceling Colin Kaepernick, but is the NFL still woke? They have all the male cheerleaders. And racism is going to stick around this year, you guys. We're very excited for that part. Are you still going to watch? That is the question. So Fred starts us off. He says, I'm not watching. My TV's allergic to woke sermons and pom-poms with dudes with savage high kicks. I'd rather binge reruns of the Puppy Bowl than sit through another NFL virtue signal fest past the popcorn, not the propaganda. Now, I will say, hot take, I'm not a Puppy Bowl person. You know why? Because the Puppy Bowl plays on Super Bowl Sunday. If I go to your house on Super Bowl Sunday and you have the Puppy Bowl on, I know you are not serious because I will watch all 12 hours of the pregame show getting ready for the big game.
Well, Fred's not messing around. And, I think if you go to his house, he's going to not have the Super Bowl on. And that was one of the most amusing ones I read. There's real vigor there in that statement. It was well written. And I feel that I'm like of 2 minds on this, right? And honestly, of 2 minds. Not trying. I usually take one side or the other. But there is part of me that does feel like he does. But ultimately, the other side wins, and I watch it.
Fred is often on the replies, and it's often because he uses my last name, Savage, in his replies. There's a cheat code Fred knows, and he uses it to his advantage.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's get to CB, who replied that as a lifelong Browns fan, I can watch a Cleveland game to remind myself canceling my season ticket several years ago was a wise decision. Goodell and the NFL are dead to me. One, your problem is you're a lifelong Browns fan. You are just asking for it. You can't expect a life of happiness when you're a Cleveland Browns fan.
I shouldn't laugh pre-Josh Allen, Bills fan here, so I have a lot of sympathy.
I'm sorry, Jim Kelly. How far back do you have to go to be happy?
For the other mistake on the lake, we both share a lot of suffering in common, but I do have many Cleveland Brown fan friends, and also I have a friend who's a Broncos fan who moved to Cleveland, who does, I admit, send me texts all the time laughing at his wife's family and the sort of sadomasochism that occurs every Monday morning after the game. But I have love for the Browns, but not a lot of love for Goodell. As he mentions, Goodell, I mean, this guy, don't even get me started. He's like the Gavin Newsom of football.
CB is out there just yelling at the top of his lungs, you've had 4 Super Bowl appearances. Come on, I know you don't win any of them, Matt, but maybe.
Which is more painful. 30 years ago,
Maybe that. Well,
4 in a row, baby. The drive for 5 continues.
That feels
Go
like
Bills.
a few weeks ago, Matt. It doesn't feel like 30 years ago.
It's true. Well, it's very fresh and painful in my memory. It'll come out in therapy someday.
Someday. Let's go ahead and get to Greg, who rounds out the replies and says the NFL is alive and well, and we'll watch it on ESPN. As always, you can't watch Colin Kaepernick in his docuseries on ESPN. We can still watch, what is that? They have Monday Night Football now. That's their thing. ESPN.
It's always changing. I don't
know.
Now that we have all the channels and all the things and we can see all the games. I don't even remember. I just turn on the TV and it's there somewhere. But I think that this is one of these deals where, as you started, there's good and bad, right? I mean, ESPN canceling that for whatever reason, I assume at the very least it's monetary, right? No one has time for that. Ain't no one got time for a Colin Kaepernick series. No one cares anymore. With the NFL itself, though, it is it's more than troubling, right? They're behind the times, and I love the NFL. I love sports. I love football in particular. I mean, I'm going to see at least 3 games a week, 2 of my boys in 2 separate games. And, we watch the Bills every week together as a family. So it's a family outing. And I get people complaining about people watching too much sports and that kind of thing. It's true. The thing with the NFL is their fan base, the reason it's so maddening is their fan base, right, is not this. No one cares. The end racism stuff, all this stuff, no one cares. And yet they still persist in this, and they seem to be like they're so out of touch culturally at this point, and yet we're still there to watch football, and I will this year.
Yeah, so we talk about the NFL being woke. They are a step behind, but I feel like they were also the ones doing a ton of the DEI measures, right? Like they were all into that. How long is it going to take them to catch up to the rest of the country? Because we saw the Trump dances at the NFL last year, and America was cheering for this. But the NFL is also, right, like the movie Concussion, they own a day of the week, right? Like, they don't have to care what we think.
They're keeping the rest of TV afloat. I mean, like live TV, live sporting events, the NFL in particular, keeps the old networks afloat. So they have all that power. But the problem in the NFL is, again, Roger Goodell being the Gavin Newsom type of the NFL. The real problem is this culture comes out of old school Republicans who tended to be like white dudes, right? Who felt like they had to put on this skin suit of DEI to protect their asses over time. That was the old school thing. That was like 10, 20 years ago. And so you could see them all like, oh yeah, we're for, this woke thing and that woke thing. And they've always just latched onto it. It's disgusting. And at some point, it does have to end. It's hard to figure out, how to make that happen when it is still like America's last big time sport. And I don't want to come down on sports because this is the last place we have to watch people celebrate excellence. And so, you're not going to get rid of the sport, but how do you get rid of the NFL being so dopey? We need to figure that out.
I know. I've talked to Jesse Kelly about this a bunch. He was a Giants fan, and he's like, I don't watch it anymore. I think he's an Ohio State Buckeyes fan. He still occasionally will watch that. He's like, all right, they haven't absolutely killed everything there. But it's sad when you're a fan of a team for your entire life, and the NFL just keeps screwing it up like this. Like, where's Jason Whitlock right now when we need him, right? We need a Jason Whitlock rant going off on this. But it does feel like this is one small drop of rain into a gigantic lake of, okay, well, we have one thing going in our direction here.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always room for improvement. And look, I don't say this, like the NFL is my one. I give everyone, you should take one thing where you can still be sort of, I'm going to call it a hypocrite, but I give myself a pass on one thing. Like I canceled the Disney, we canceled a lot. I'm still going to watch one football game a week. At some point, maybe I do give it up. But I think we need to reconquer it in some way. And these guys need to be shamed. And, maybe we can think of ways to do that at a news network. I don't know.
Well, speaking of that, you work out a lot now. Have you ever thought about becoming a male cheerleader for the NFL?
That's why I work out. I aspire.
Matt has hopes and dreams, and they are being on the sideline on an NFL Sunday, maybe in a unitard. I don't know. That's how the show's going to end, though. He can't say anything bad because we are out of time. Thanks for watching, everybody.